didn't have to listen to, at least Brennan's like intro wasn't in there, so we're good. Um, so thanks everyone for the invitation this afternoon to talk to the student new professional chapter. As Brennan mentioned, I am his mentor through the chapter. When he asked me to be his mentor, I was pretty excited. I do have mentors within the mentees within the firm as well. So I am a mentor both internal to CDM Smith and external with Brennan and the student new professional chapter. So kind of what I've got today as the slide deck is, as Brennan mentioned, I've got some kind of just background info that is part of these are kind of the comments that we are given as mentors within CDM Smith. We actually use a group called Together Networking to kind of manage our network, how we mentor staff, certain number of like meetings we're supposed to have, how to have meetings. And so I kind of grabbed some of the highlights and I thought I could kind of talk about them and it references and it kind of goes well the conference as well in a couple of weeks. So nothing I'm sharing here is like new or unique, but I just thought it'd be kind of cool to give you some of those ideas and I'll tell you part of the stories as to how I feel some of that fits. Kind of first the background of who I am. So I'm a Great Lakes trained coastal engineer. So I'm kind of weird in the world of coastal engineers go. The majority of my career I did not have to worry about tides. We worried about average annual lake levels and how those move through time. But I have 2 degrees from Purdue and 1 degree from the University of Michigan. And then I took that and joined the workforce in 2003. So as Brendan said, I've been in the workforce for over 20 years now. But throughout my academic career, I was actually working for my advisors' companies. So I was constantly doing like sediment transport calcs and beach evolution projects and even designed a harbor refuge up in Lake Superior. So kind of had on the very much applied experiences as a grad student. So I got to do a lot of work. Also, just to give you an idea, like I have not been with one company my entire career. I started with Woods Hole Group out of college and then moved to CDM Smith. And that move to CDM Smith was based on networking I had done. And so I think it's kind of important to explain that. And even my move from Purdue to the University of Michigan was based on networking that I had experienced through time. When I was at Purdue, my academic advisor passed away, and the professor who stepped in to help was actually his first grad student ever, who happened to be a professor at the University of Michigan. So he stepped in and said, "Brian, let me help you finish your career." And so after working with him at Purdue, I said, I'd love to get a degree with you as well. So I went to the University of Michigan to study with him. And when I went from Woods Hole Group to CDM Smith, it was a recruiter who had gotten my name from somebody who worked with CDM Smith. And they said, "Hey, we're looking for a coastal numerical modeler, and we think you would be the right person and fit for our firm." So networking has gotten me to where I'm at today. And so I've kind of always, as I said, it's what I have to share is more of the stories and some of the kind of bullet points that that our Together Networking has kind of given us to talk about. So one of the important things, if you guys are out there and you're trying to develop a mentor-mentee relationship, you want to make sure that you get to know one another. So you want to be able to share your background, your experiences, your interests, and your expectations. And in reality, it's why do you want to be mentored by this individual? Why do you want to get to know this person? In our field, it's all going to be about our coastal engineering backgrounds. That's probably we're interested in the technical experiences, being able to meet these people, being able to have similar interests. And then the expectations is really what is it that you may be looking for out of those relationships. I've heard stories of some of the kind of mentor-mentee relationships within our firm where people will choose a book to read and then they'll read that book and then talk about the book throughout the course of their meetings. And some of it's just to be something outside of just your technical background you're talking on, and just to see and kind of experience different things and have that. The other important thing is you're setting goals and expectations for mentoring. Why is it you want to be mentored? And so when Brennan and I talked, it was about kind of how do you grow your career? And he was finishing his degree up. He knew he was going to be working for the Corps of Engineers. And then it was, I've never been a Corps employee, so it's hard for me I can't explain how to grow within the Corps itself. but I'm able to talk to him about just expectations of how to grow your career, what you should be looking for, opportunities when they come to you, what you want to look for. But if you're in your firm right now and you're looking to grow your skill sets, you may be focused on something else other than just growing your network. It might be about how you become a leader, how you develop your communication skills, or anything along those lines. And like I said, I think a lot of what we do in the engineering field tends to be more in the technical skill sets. But Brennan also had these questions for me about growing your network. What's the importance of networking? You understand the role of the networking, right? So why is it that networking works? And at the conference, this is one of the best sets out there. As I showed, my career exists because of my networking. I started at Purdue, met a professor that brought me to the University of Michigan, and then actually my move from the University of Michigan to Woods Hole Group was also because of networking. So for those who know Lee Wisher, who's also a member of the board of directors, he's also a Purdue graduate. He and I did not overlap at all. For those who know Lee, he went to Purdue in the 80s. And so I knew from kind of the academic brotherhood at Purdue that Lee was one of the grad students. So I had the opportunity to talk to him and say, hey, it's like I'm interested in growing outside of or coming and joining the workforce. Is Woods Hole Group a good place to go to? And so I had the opportunity to kind of talk, and so I built those networks, and a lot of it was based on the academic career I had at that point in time. And those are the types of networks you have, right? So you start off with your academic network. It's your brothers and sisters within the lab you're part of. And then you realize as well, I always tend to joke that coastal engineering is a lot like West Virginia. We're all related. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of, you look at the professors that started, right, with Bob Dean and Dalrymple, it's like then they begat professors such as like Tuba Oskan Haller and James Kaitu and Jen Irish, and then they now begat their own grad students. And so you just keep looking at, it's our academic tree. We're all kind of from similar, ancestry. We're learning kind of the same type of people. So you're always not that far off from knowing one of these individuals. And so rely on that academic background very heavily of the network you've built. Then realize that all of those academic individuals have moved into professional careers. And so you look at people at the different firms where they've gone to, and that gives you then that opportunity to start to grow and look at what's happening in the professional space. Like I said, my connection to Lee Wisher is what got me to Woods Hole Group, and then the connection that I had made. And once I started professional career, I'd started doing. I was a member of the Boston Society of Civil Engineers section, which is the ASCE local section, and in that group, I'd met individuals that were in other firms, and so from there, then I moved into CBM Smith, and then of course you build your social network as well. And I'm going to talk more about that later, but just the idea of how you have a presence on social platforms, whether it be LinkedIn or Twitter. Those are kind of the two that I tend to use as on a personal kind of professional outward facing look. But there are things there that I'll talk about. And of course, one of the benefits of the networking, as we all expect, it's your career advancement. It's the ability to knowledge share and relationship building. The knowledge sharing, I think, is one of the important ones that we don't think of quite often. My advisor at one point in time, when I was at Purdue, took a sabbatical, went to the University of Michigan, and he talked about just the fact that once he was at Michigan, he had a lot more professors of like-minded thought around him. And so you could solve problems better because you had someone to go talk to, and you had someone to go bounce ideas off of. He called it it was the idea of you needed this mass of thought that you could go and see. So once the bigger that mass gets, the better off you are, because you have more ability to kind of go bounce it and have sounding boards. And so I definitely feel that that's one of the things that you want to always have. There's nothing more than trying to solve a problem and you have no one to turn to, right? It's like you can't ask somebody an additional question. So definitely do think of that once you build these networks, these are always someone that you want to turn to and ask questions for and help. So the strategies for effective networking. identifying and approaching contacts. So again, now let's talk about the conference next week. So you've all got your Whova apps, you've seen the schedules and the presentations. Look for presentations that you like, or look at a speaker. If there's like a certain firm you're interested in learning more about, then you could go find a speaker from that firm. You could go target that session, and you then find something within their presentation that is of interest to you, and then you can use that as your icebreaker, right? Somehow, for those who ever take Myers-Briggs, I'm actually considered an introvert, and most of my coworkers can understand that, because I can stand in front of a crowd and talk forever. But I very much prefer to, I want to know what I'm talking about before I talk to somebody. So I'm more apt to sit in the room and say nothing to anyone, but just listen and pick up all this information. And then when I have the opportunity to talk to somebody alone, I then go down that path, because that's just, to me, the easier way to do it. And so I try to find that common ground that I have with someone to talk to them and approach them. So I definitely think that the best way when you're at these conferences is you look at who's presenting, if there's a topic of interest to you, and then you don't have to ask the question in the session, right? You can always just find the opportunity, after the session, to talk to them. Or, the other thing is, we have plenty of breaks. The reason we do the breaks is for networking. We all have a name tag, and so hopefully their name tag's flipped around the right way and you can see their name. You have the opportunity to talk to them. Or if someone's just standing there grabbing a coffee, alone, then feel free to approach them. If they're busy on a phone call or whatever, then yeah, leave them alone. But it's definitely do that. A story I have of approached by a contact, when I was doing my master's, I was presenting on the material that I developed as part of my master's work. We were at Coastal Dynamics over in Plymouth, England, and I was sitting outside a session and kind of just sitting in a chair relaxing, and a gentleman sat down in front of me, but his name tag was turned around backwards. And I talked to him for probably half an hour, and he was asking me what I was doing there, what I was presenting on, and at the end of the day, it was actually the professor who was, his research study was the basis of all of my research. So he had basically knew who I was, and he turned his name tag around so that I wouldn't be nervous that I was talking to the originator of the topic. Don't do that though, because I was scared shitless then when I realized it was him. Professors tend to do that. Employers don't, consultants. We're not gonna try to hide who we are. But definitely identify what you want. If you're thinking you want to talk to somebody about a new job, or if you're thinking about something in the academic world, just use the Whova app. You've got the opportunities there to see who these people are, where they're from. You can search by so many different topics. It's I was looking just before the call started. You can see people from the same state you're at, or you can see people who went to the same school you went to. And I think there's a couple other ways you can do the searches. So definitely, leverage that as much as possible. And then you can see where they're presenting, if they are at all. I am not, I'm past that point. How do you want to initiate and maintain those conversations? Like I said, I tend to be much more of I want to find that common ground with you. And that's a personal experience for me. That is just, I kind of want to have a story to tell with you and hear from you, that similar story. And so I try to find that common ground and work on that, and then try to develop that and push that, or use that as my conversations. Also, some of that is, once you've started that, then how do you maintain that connection afterwards? Feel free. You can ask people for business cards. A lot of people don't carry business cards anymore, just because I can show you, I'm sitting at my desk at my office, or at home office, and I've got 4 boxes of unused business cards in a drawer here, because somebody changed the logo, or you got an advancement and you decided to get the new business card, and then that got advanced again, or you changed companies. So I don't use business cards anymore. I tend to use actually an app. It's on my phone. It's just a QR code. And you just basically pull up the QR code, someone can scan it, and it basically builds then a a contact for them on their phone. So it's like they have to spend a little bit of effort to create it, but that's the way to do it. It's like feel free to reach out to them. Then after that point, email I think makes most sense. Also feel free to use LinkedIn if you know somebody, then try to connect with them. It's like I tend to do that a lot where it's like if I've met somebody, then I try to connect with them on LinkedIn because then I know that I always could chat with them via LinkedIn. Actually, Brennan knows I happen to be on vacation, so I sent him a LinkedIn connection comment and said, hey, by the way, I'm on vacation. I don't have my work phone with me or my laptop. So go ahead and set up this meeting and I'll be there. But yeah, it's like just use the conversation methods that are out there. The social media and professional platforms, I'll talk on that again, like I said at the end, but you whenever you're using your social network, you're building your own brand. So you're not just building the brand of your company that you work for or the school that you work for, but you're really building who you are, and it's who you are in that field. And so, don't be afraid to share this material, put it out there and allow, I'll kind of explain how I've done it. And, I'm not saying it's the best. I jokingly, I get text messages from internal coworkers who take our corporate class on how to do social media. And I guess half of the slides are from me. It's like what I've done, how I've done it. And I have no clue how I've done that either. I just kind of do it. But definitely take advantage of this conference. Go out there, do your, it's like you've got opportunities. You have all the networking breaks. You have all the sessions. You do have the SNP and Network for Engineering with Nature, which is Tuesday night, and then there's also there's the cornhole tournament Wednesday night, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there. And if you happen to be taking the field trip, the nice part of the field trip is you're in a smaller group and you're kind of confined, right? Because you're in the bus. So you have the opportunity to sit next to somebody or in front of somebody or behind them and start a conversation about something you just happen to see when you were out there on one of the Galveston stops. Or like when you're out on the Galveston stop, you can go up and ask somebody, hey, it's like you could have the opportunity to talk to them in a smaller setting. So definitely take these opportunities as they fall in front of you. It's a great chance to get out there and talk to people. So these are my social media presences that I tend to use as a corporate, as you can see, right? So my Twitter account, which is on the right-hand side, is Brian Caulfield PE, right? And part of that is because I follow coastal-based organizations with that account. I also have a personal Twitter account that I follow, like the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Cubs, like things that are of interest to me, but it's not the interest that I think is like the corporate profile that I want to also share with people. And so on that, I tend to share, I used to be a lot more. I would share articles. Like if you guys can remember, there was a Coastal Daily Digest bulletin, right? Where there'd be like various news articles that would get shared. If I found an article that was interesting, I would share it. I was never one to like post my own comment on it, like how I felt about the story. Like that's not my message to convey, right? I just thought it was a pretty cool article and you can read it and you develop your own opinions. Like I'm not there to create one for you. That was how I've always used that kind of method. I also I actually had to just clean up my profile at the start because it actually said that I was the live Twitter feed for ASBPA 2022. And that actually came from Brett Webb giving me crap during one of the sessions, because every session I would go to, like I will take pictures of the presenters, like I will take highlights of what I think they've talked about and try to share it out. And so I was basically live tweeting the event from different sessions as I attended them. I do try to do that. I use the social hashtag at the conference, like ASBPA 2022. This year it will be ASBPA. I think we've added in some additional letters now, 2024. But yeah, so it's like I will make sure I'm using that. I will tweet out and support like sessions I'm at. What I like to do if I'm like moderating a session, I like to try to get pictures of each one of the presenters, and thank them. And then I also try to have, like, if they have a Twitter handle, I will mark that as well, or their company's handle, because then, there's a lot of companies love the companies you work for, they love to pick this stuff up and re-push that. And one of the things you have to realize is, like I said, I'm building my brand. So someone will see that I tweeted that Wendy Lauren was one of the presenters in one of my sessions, and she works for Taylor Engineering, and I will put all that in there, and it doesn't bother me that, like, and the corporate doesn't mind the fact that I'm doing this for Taylor, because they realize at the same time I'm building my brand as I'm this coastal person attending these conferences, and I'm pushing for the coastal brand, which is also our brand and who I am. So always think of that with your brands. The same is true for your LinkedIn profiles. Like I said, I tend to use my Twitter probably more than I do for LinkedIn, but I have been moving more to LinkedIn. I tend to share more like job opportunities on LinkedIn than I do kind of like articles, just because I think of articles coming from a different source, and it's who I am, and I'm an old dog, can't teach me new tricks yet. But those are the two kind of profiles you tend to have, and you just use them to your best of your abilities. As you can tell, it's the same corporate photo on both of them. But those are what I use, and then it's like, I have to admit, I follow a lot of you guys through probably your labs or your companies. Like I said, I do follow a lot of the competition, because you want to see who they're presenting on, or what, like, they're going to advocate the fact that they are attending this conference. Like HDR has put out, here's a picture of all of us who are attending the conference and our presentations. And I think I've seen it from Taylor as well. So it's like, it's all stuff that you tend to see. And of course, I'm also a board member of ASBPA. And so I want to push the conference as hard as possible, because I don't care who you are or where you come from. To me, it's like, we're all ASBPA. And so I want to kind of push that and make the best of the opportunities we have for being there. And so, with that, like Taylor, like Brennan said, we only had a couple of presentations or a couple of slides. So I've got opportunities to take questions from people or answer. I did see someone did point out, yeah, it is Blink. That is the app I use for my business card, and for some odd reason, now it shows up on my phone. But yeah, so I use that. It's free. It's just, like I said, it's just a QR code. Someone scans it, but it basically creates a contact for them in their phone. So they have to spend a little bit of effort, because they have to save the contact. So it doesn't automatically save it. It doesn't like push it through. So like, there are a couple of people who I did not tell that to, mainly because I did not need them to save my contacts. So I hope that they didn't do it and they walked away. But yeah, that's just know sometimes people don't have business cards anymore. And so, like, don't struggle about it. Just go ahead and figure out a way to connect with them, whether it's creating your own contact on your phone, or finding to connect with them on LinkedIn. I would definitely recommend, like, you have the Hoova app on your phone, get the LinkedIn app on your phone, and if you do any other social media, then have those apps on your phone and figure out ways to connect with people.
That was awesome stuff, Brian. Thank you so much. That a ton of lessons and tips that I will definitely be trying to use at the conference, and hopefully everybody else attending, or even those not attending, can take those tips with you later on. Like, this is coming from somebody that I truly feel like has one of the best media presences in the field. Like, if you don't follow Brian's Twitter account, it's pretty funny. I like seeing his posts.
The other person to follow for all you guys, Brett Webb.
Brett
Um,
Webb's is really good
yeah.
too. Yeah.
So that, like, my company had actually told me at one point in time that, like, you and Brett had this bromance that's kind of a little odd. And it was because he was like, it was one at the start of the year, he was down in Virginia, he was in the Virgin Islands, like, collecting data. And as you guys remember, I was a Great Lakes trained coastal engineer. I'm collecting cross shore beach profiles in 35-degree water. So I'm wearing a 7 mil wetsuit, and it really doesn't matter you're wearing a 7 mil wetsuit, because you really should be in the dry at that point. But we're collecting beach profiles in 35-degree water, and here he is showing pictures of him and his grad students in the USVI, and I was like, where'd I go wrong? And it's like, and we openly had these discussions on Twitter and LinkedIn, and like I said, my corporate company was, or like, sometimes your bromance is a little wrong. I was like, hey, whatever.
That's good stuff. With that, we'd like to open it up to any, questions or comments or just conversations you guys want to have. I definitely have a couple of questions loaded. So, but again, Brian's my mentor, so I can ask later. But I will open it up to you guys, and um, you know, please feel free to come off mute. No need to raise your hands.
I guess your Twitter bromance is a good segue into my question of you gave a lot of like what are the good things to be putting out there on social media? What are some things that you would suggest we avoid or not have associated with our professional accounts?
Uh, so I mean, the reason I created the two accounts was because I happened to find the CEO of my company, he only followed like 30 people, and they were all golfers. And I was like, it's kind of weird that it's like all you do are follow golfers, but and I'm like, that's why I kind of created the second profile. I'm like, because I wanted it to be about like what I'm following, what I'm learning about. I don't know if there's anything that you shouldn't share. It's like the everything you do comes with repercussions, right? Like I've often wondered whether I think a lot of us are on, I hope a lot of you guys are on LinkedIn and you all follow Rob Young, right? The professor out of Western Carolina University, who he posts a lot of thought-provoking questions about the investments we're making on our beaches. And I don't know if I would share that. I don't share the same mindset he has. I do though agree that it's like sometimes somewhere along the line we're gonna have to figure out a way to start to consider retreat more often or strategic realignment or whatever word we're gonna call it at this point in time. But it's something that like you have to, that's like I said, that's why I tend to share articles without my opinion, because to me it's just more of like I'll share a Rob Young opinion. I share also for those on Twitter, it's AR Siders, A.R. Siders. I can't think of her first name. But she's heavily involved in the retreat world. She does a lot of presentations and conferences. She's like, again, like I have no problem sharing this material. And I know that a lot of it is it's like anti-beach nourishment and don't like save our coasts and stuff. But I look at my world as like if we end up retreating, we're still saving our coast from along the line, and that we're protecting it. And so that is something to do. I think like it matters more to stay out of that kind of stuff. I you hear the horror stories now of HR also looking back at, I think it's more like the athletes, right? It's like they post something stupid when they were in high school, and then somebody looks at it and they're like, I can't believe you were 17 and you said this. And it's like, I could, it's like, and I'm definitely a long way away from 17 now. But it doesn't bother me that when you see these types of opinions or things like, I'm not going to go back and look at that. I think, it's like just being mindful of anything you post has potential repercussions. You'll see a lot of people, I think on Twitter will say, it's like my opinions are mine alone and not those of the company. Right. And it's like, that's fine. But yeah, I definitely, opinions, people always have an opinion against you. I think the other thing too is if you post anything and someone comes at you as a hater, just let it roll off you, because it's like it doesn't matter. You're just gonna move on and continue doing what you're doing. It's like someone's opinion and back in the day when it was only 140 characters, right? You weren't gonna learn anything in 140 characters. And back then you couldn't really do threads either and do a bunch of like posts. So to me, it's just more of like, post whatever you want to and just be like, just know what you post is, if it's opinionated in any way, someone may comment on it, but just move on. Like, don't try to get into the fight with them.
Great, thanks.
Related to the conference, what would be your biggest suggestion for someone who it's their first time attending?
Let's do your homework. Like, definitely Hoova app or look at the giant spreadsheet of the presentations. We've got the matrix that's available on asppa.com.org. And if you look at that, like I said, it's either look at the names. It's hard because it's not names and companies, so it's not like you can start to target the companies. But think of like, what is it that's you're of interest to you? Like, is it living shorelines? is it gray infrastructure? Is it beaches? Is it beach nourishment? Are you more on the softer skills that you have interest in? And find those like topics and then look at who's presenting. And then you can easily use the Whova app to see more about who that individual is, or Google them, right? And it's, Google who they are. Like you'll see maybe their LinkedIn profile. It might show you what company they work for. It could probably show you other presentations they've given, because their name's probably been on other other shared matrices of presentations. And like definitely do your homework. It's I can remember when I was younger, I would have the book, and you would highlight, I'm going to these are the people I want to talk to, and like you just plan from there. And Wendy, I see you just shared the matrix. So yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
matrix
now it's even easier with Whova, is you can see where they work, who they work for. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's connected to their LinkedIn. So I think if you have someone you want to try and talk to, you already have all this background information about them. Don't be scared to go up and start a conversation.
Yeah, and like I said, it's as Wendy knows, like I have a very long history with Taylor Engineering, right? It's like no one in the consulting business ever works alone. I spend more of my time on joint venture calls than I do on CDM Smith calls. I am on phone calls with Michael Del Charco, or back in the day when it was Guillermo Simon. Of course, now he's with Half, but I still talk to him because now he's Half, which is still part of the joint venture I'm part of. Or I'm talking to Chris Bender, or like there are names galore at every engineering firm that you somehow are connected with through some joint venture. It's like half the people I work with on a daily basis are ecom. They're not CDM Smith, because of that, and that's just the nature of the beast of the organization we're part of now. So like you can leverage those too, where you're just like, I don't know who you are, but I know your coworkers, and that's that opportunity to talk to them, because you have either the shared experience of these people you've worked with, or the shared experience of maybe going to school with one of their coworkers, anything along those lines. Like it's opportunities that you can exploit.
Exactly. And ASBPA is one of those networks too. Once you go to one conference, you'll start recognizing people, and it's really easy.
The first time I went to ASBPA was 1996. No, 97. It was in Chicago. I was the student like assistant. Back then we only had one room that we were in, so we weren't in multiple rooms. And my job was, for those of you who remember the overhead projectors, of course none of you do, but it was an actual light, it was a light box that had like a thing that just shined out, and you had acetates. And then my job was basically, because that had to be further away from the screen, so the presenter would be up at a podium in a dais talking, and your job was to hear next slide. You would take the acetate off, you hold the next acetate on, and if it was a crappy acetate, it would start to roll because of the heat from the lamp. So you'd have to sit there and try not to block it, like hold down the corners with your fingers and figure out this methodology of giving the presentation. So first ASBPA was 97. And then I think I've gone almost everyone since 2009, except for the year I was deployed after Hurricane Harvey. So that was 2017, I think, was like the last one I missed.
Brian, I have a question about a scenario I'm confident that anybody who's ever been to a conference has been in. That super awkward moment where there's somebody you really want to talk to and they're already in a conversation, and you're kind of like just standing around close and like trying to make it clear that like you're waiting to talk to them. Like how do you navigate that? What are some things you should and shouldn't do in that scenario? Like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those people who will interrupt the conversation that's happening. It's like you hope that they recognize that you were seen, kind of waiting to talk to that person, and you hope that the individual like cuts it short of what the conversation they're in. But I would definitely, like, you don't want to interrupt, because interrupting is not, it's like if the conversation is deep or something, I do think like sometimes there's conversations that are just, it's not really deep. Like if it's a bigger group talking, then you could probably just kind of slide into the group. But if it's like a one-on-one conversation, then you definitely don't want to do that. Then you just have to make a mental mark. I got to come back to this person somehow, and it's unfortunately with our event, we only have one lunch. And that's, it's like a lot of times you look for them at the table they're at and you go grab that, sit at that table with them. Hey, do you mind if I sit here? Like, and you have the opportunity then to talk to them, like, because you're forced because you're at the table. But there should be plenty of opportunities here to meet with people. We've got, Tuesday there's a refreshment break. Then we've got the student poster session plus what else is there? Oh, there's an opening reception, and then we've got Wednesday we'll have the lunch, we'll have the cornhole tournament, all the breaks. It's like there should be plenty of opportunities to find these people. So don't get let down, right? Because you're gonna have another opportunity to find that person. Just remember what it is that you want to talk to them about, because it sucked to then see them later and be like, I forgot.
Questions, guys?
I have one kind of going back to the mentor-mentee relationship, unless anyone has more to ask about the conference.
Go ahead.
My question on that is, I guess twofold. The first one being, are there certain questions that you as a mentor wish that a mentee would ask? Not calling you out, Brennan. Just in general, like are there certain topics that you would like the mentee to lead, but you also like hope that is a topic that's brought up?
Great question. So the mentor mentee relationship, especially for the mentor side, is much about listening, right? So the mentor should not be driving the conversations. They should just be directing them, because it's about the growth of the mentee. And so they need to figure out what they want in their kind of growth area. And then like either be asking you those questions or, like then helping you kind of figure out as a mentor what direction to take. I think the questions, if you're a mentee, to be asking somebody, it's also, I think it's dependent on like, how do I grow beyond just being a junior engineer? I think like that was one of the questions Brennan asked, because he knew that he wanted to get some project experience. And so, I don't know how quickly it happens at the core level. When you're in the consultant world, you have a lot of opportunities that exist at what we call task manager level. So like, there's going to be a project manager who's managing a project, and there's going to be like 10 tasks. And then, so sometimes some of those projects, they have task managers, or they'll have like even subtask managers, right? Where it's like, maybe there's a task that's kind of engineering focused and GIS focused. And so we'll put in an engineer and a GIS kind of lead those activities. When those arise, take them if that's the way you want to grow. And so it's really more about the growth you're looking for as a mentee, to make sure that you're asking those questions. I mean, the questions I'd love Brendan to ask is like, what's your favorite bourbon, single malt scotch, right? It's like, it's the stuff that's in my wheelhouse that, when you start asking about like, how do I, it's like, how do you handle certain, situations? I think even, Brendan and I, we did talk about like, the salaries and that kind of stuff. And again, it's like, how do you have those conversations? And so you tend to have them, and you just kind of talk about like, well, these are what you want to ask, or it's not how you ask for it, but it's like how you show how you've performed the work to have that type of conversation. So it's I don't think it's a simple like, these are the questions I feel would be great if you ask them. It's more of like the ones that matter the most to you, of what you're trying to get out of it.
Awesome. Thank you. And then my follow-up to that one is, obviously there's going to be kind of times in a relationship, especially the longer that it continues onward, that there's stagnant periods or anything like that. Like, how do you kind of maintain that connection and maintain growth, both like as a mentee growing in your career and then also in your kind of relationship, because they're also like beyond mentor mentee, like eventually you're both going to be colleagues working on projects together and stuff like that. So kind of how do you allow that to grow?
It's funny, but I think some of it's in the social world, right? It's like somebody posts something on LinkedIn, like they shared something that their company shared. Just by liking it, it's kind of like a reminder, hey, I'm still watching you, and keeping a tab on you, or like hoping to engage with you. Emails work. The hardest thing we have now is there are so many ways to contact an individual. For example, we have Teams, we have email, we have our phones, and we have our cell phones. I hardly ever talk to people on the phone anymore because I got too much going on. It's like there are days you just sit on the phone all day anyways. So you want to kind of be like, I don't want to talk to people right now. I just want to get work done. But it's like then you'll be in a conversation with somebody on Teams and then you're missing all these emails. And so like realize that there are so many forms of communication out there that things can get lost. And so like every once in a while maybe you have to send kind of a reminder, hey, hoping to catch up with you. Like when Brendan asked me to actually do this, I thought he was trying to bug me to have our next meeting in the mentor mentee thing. And I was gonna be like, let's just do something when we're down in Galveston. But I don't think we can, because I think his schedule and my schedule in Galveston are just gonna be crazy. We're gonna be all over the place. And while I'm looking forward to seeing him in person again, if I can grab him a coffee somewhere or get him a drink somewhere, like I will. Except for the fact that he's now at the Corps of Engineers and technically a client, so I don't know if I can do that for him anymore. But it's that whole stuff you have to think about. But yeah, it's definitely like find a way to communicate still, and like I said, it's as simple as a like on a Twitter post or on a LinkedIn note, and all of us should be doing it because, like I said, you want to build your brand, and so be sharing stuff on LinkedIn. Like I said, I've moved more to LinkedIn than I have from Twitter. But it's maybe if Twitter ownership changes, and maybe it might go back to the way I was. But it also is because we don't have that Coastal Daily Digest email anymore, so I don't have the number of like newspaper articles to share on a daily basis that I used to have.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, RIP that Daily Digest. That thing used to be my go-to in the mornings. Really miss that. I don't know. Maybe Deb one day will
Like I
embrace.
can't believe I swear I probably spent an hour because like you'd like I'd open all the articles I thought that were cool. I'd read the ones that I really, really enjoyed. And then it's like I was like, if this is worth sharing, I'm gonna go ahead and just click the icon that says, Twitter, it's the blue bird, right? And just be like, here you go. Now it's a black X, whatever. And it's been like an hour doing that. Like, how the hell is the company liking me doing this? I don't know, but you learned a lot.
Definitely. All right. Well, guys, we're going to cut off the questions, but we're gonna make sure that we share the recording will be posted to YouTube. We'll also share it in an email. I have Brian's slides as well, so we'll share that and his contact information. So please feel free to contact him if you have any further questions or stuff you want to ask kind of offline, not in front of everybody. That's totally cool too. And again, if you're gonna be at the conference, make sure you say hi. Keep the connections going. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us
Yeah.
today. We
Thanks
appreciate
everybody.
it so
Hopefully
much.
I'll see a bunch of you next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And hope if you guys see me, stop by, say hi. As I said, I'm the introvert, so I'm not coming to find you.